I had a lesson yesterday in giving back, and the lesson hit me hard. And this lesson, in fact, calls me out and the version of me I was before this moment of clarity. I had a miracle yesterday happen, and again, other people might not view this as a miracle. I will tell you the story. You get to decide for yourself. But I want to interpret it as that because I think that it keeps me aligned with the best version of me. So it starts 3 days ago, and my cat has been out during the day, which is not unusual. I come home from work. My neighbour will always check in with my cat, look after my cat when I'm not there. And I was only gone for, a few hours. She says he's acting funny. So I check him over and I notice he is acting funny. He's doing this thing with his neck, almost gagging. It seems like we're thinking maybe something is potentially stuck in his throat, but we're worried about him because he's not eating and he's not drinking. I get to the point after observing this for a couple of hours where I'm thinking I'm not comfortable with leaving him like this overnight. I call my doctor. I call my vet. They say, we can't see you, but we can give you an emergency out of hours number. I know those things tend to be expensive, but I was so worried at this point that I thought I can't leave him overnight like this because he was doing it pretty much all of the time. So I was like, I'm gonna take him. So I took him. They said that they suspected that it was a blade of grass. And again, this is something that, can happen with cats, and it gets, because it's flat, it can get stuck at the back of his throat. They said it's not an emergency though. You can go to your own vets in the morning and they'll take care of it. So I said, no problem, thank you for your time. I took him to the vets with me the day after. They managed to find me an appointment in the morning. She didn't really check him over. She just said, she checked his throat and she said, and his heartbeat, and said, okay, yeah, we can sedate him and get rid of this potential grass seed or piece of grass. So I said, right, okay, no problem. He gets put to sleep and I go away and I've still not heard anything by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I call and I'm like, I've not heard anything. How is my cat doing? She says, I'll just get the vet, and she gets the vet and the vet says, we couldn't find anything. So I'm like baffled at this point, confused because they're the experts. So I go back and she basically says the next point of call is an endoscopy, which is basically, or a rhinoscopy, which is basically like cameras down either end to investigate what is going on in his digestive tract. So I said, that sounds really expensive. And before anybody beats me over the head with it, yes, I will get my cats insured. I've learned that lesson for sure from this. But I was like, how much is that? Because I'd spent at this point all my savings on everything that had happened to that point. And, hundreds of pounds down with no answer, and they're not any closer to understanding what's going on. So she basically says, you're talking thousands of pounds. And she said, charities might do it cheaper. She has a look at a charity on her computer while I'm there, and she says even charities are doing it for like between £1,000 and £1,200. And I said, I don't have that. I don't have that money. And I said, but you can't just leave him like this. Like, he's not eating and he's not drinking, and we're like, days in at this point. And she's like, yeah, there's nothing we can do. Her exact words, there is nothing we can do if you can't afford it. And I understand that some people might argue at this point, like, don't have pets if you can't. They're on pet plans. I get them regularly checked. I've never had this issue before. Not that I need to explain these things, but I don't think having a pet should be only for the elite. And this is where my lesson comes in. But I will get onto that at the end. So me and my husband end up ringing around charities, and they are all rejecting us, saying that they can't see him for whatever reason. You're out of area, whatever it might be. So we're desperate. There's only one charity left who is not answering. And then my husband happens to call another vet in the area called Valley Vet Care. And they was like, we understand that kind of is a lot of money to just have at hand. We will do what we can. they managed to get a price for us which was so much more reasonable. But they said, send Jet's information over, get your vet to send it over to us. So I did. And she got the vet to look at it, and the vet said, bring him in right now, bring him in, and we will take a look at him. And when I say I had been sobbing at this point, I was begging, I was praying and pleading with God to give me a miracle. I said, I don't beg, I don't really cry. I am desperate and I need some help. This fluffy little boy, my little baby, he's only 3 years old, and I need something, because if he's not eating and he's not drinking, we know where that kind of ends. So I'm thinking, how do I tell my kids this? So he says, bring him in, because there's a couple of things like not really adding up on his file to me. So I take him in. This vet, when I say he cares. The time and the energy that he gives all of us, from my cat to me and my children, and explaining how things work and what things might be happening, and his history and his understanding of these particular things. And he basically said a colonoscopy should be the last thing. Everything else should be investigated first, which makes perfect sense, but I'd not heard this before. And he said, from everything that I've done in my investigation, like I say, this was thorough, more thorough than the emergency vet, more thorough than the vet that I had been with for years. He said, I highly suspect that this is laryngitis, and it does not need an internal investigation. He said, I'm 95% certain of that. He said, I'm going to give him antibiotics because obviously he can't swallow at the moment, so I'm going to give him injectable antibiotics, anti-inflammatory and painkillers. And when I say in less than 24 hours, my cat is eating and drinking again, and he's not lethargic and in and out of consciousness, all because somebody took a chance. They genuinely cared about their job. They genuinely cared about the animal. And when I begged and pleaded with my vet and I said, are you just going to let him die? And she said, yeah, there's nothing we can do. The lesson that I took away from that is not everybody can afford an expensive bill. And I have always offered a discounted rate for so many clients. But I think that this was a major lesson from whatever you believe. Not only was, for me, in my mind, a miracle, because if that vet had not taken the chance to look at this and investigate this further, my cat would not have been eating or drinking, and everybody had this idea in their head that he needed this colonoscopy. He'd have died. So I don't think it's anything short of a miracle. And the lesson I learned is that although I know I'm not as expensive as some therapists, I want to make my services more accessible to people who might not be able to afford it. And that was a hard, a sharp, and a powerful lesson. I genuinely have had this belief that if somebody wants to afford it, they will afford it. And I think that unfortunately, and again, like I say, I hold my hands up to this, is an elitist view. And although you can offer tiers, I have no issue with somebody who is offering like an exclusive service and that might be a bit more expensive. But what about the people underneath that who can't access that, and they might want that, or they might have everything in them that is able to do that work to make their life and their mental health better? And I thought, I'm going to start looking at the services underneath the bracket that I already offer. So the things that I've been brainstorming with my husband are half-an-hour sessions for under half of the price, and also workshops where maybe we could do, just for hiring room purposes, charge something like £5 per person. And I think that most people should be able to access that if they have an interest to, or they have a desire to do that work. Because again, not everybody is in the place where they want to do that work, and that is absolutely fine. And I know that this has been the longest story ever, but this is the point that I am at, and I am always open and always awake to the lessons that get thrown in my path. And I am sad about the version of me that I used to be before I got this lesson, but I am always expanding. I am always wanting to work on myself, and this is the outcome from the latest lesson that I've had in the trauma of it all. So yes, if anybody is interested in those different provisions or knows anybody who is interested in those different provisions, please do let me know, because I will sort that out. I will obviously update anybody on any of the workshops that I will be doing moving forward from this space. But yes, please do spread the message out there, not for clout or anything like that, but you just never really know who's suffering. A lot of people do suffer in silence, and you never know who it might come across and how they might actually really, really need that service at this time.